Ayan. Hello, hello. Good evening to everyone, I think, for the most part. Kung nasa other parts of the world kayo, so good morning or good afternoon. So we are back. And I see a few of you have already joined. So welcome back to the revenue stream. I know we've been out of YouTube for a while, so this is one of our comeback streams. And today we're going to be talking about one of the most frequently asked questions I get, which is related to credit cards. So hopefully this is going to be an interesting evening. I hope to make this as engaging as possible. So let's get into it. We have a lot of topics in store. So I'm gonna walk you through first a few logistics items para alam nyo kung paano makipag-interact with me. Right? So I know all of us are probably tired of Zoom because we've been Zooming for now almost 2 years. But in YouTube Live, the tools are a bit more limited. So we're gonna utilize the live chat. I see some of you have already seen it. So welcome, welcome. And while you're here, please just click on the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Okay, so I think you've seen the live chat. It should be somewhere at the bottom of your screen if you're on a mobile device or somewhere to the right if you are on a laptop. So depende on what device you're using. So just chat with me. I will be monitoring the chat over the course of the stream. And if you have questions, feel free to just type it in. I will try to answer. Or if not, I will reserve some time at the end of the stream later on for Q&A as well. Okay. So, with that being said, para alam natin kung paano natin mag-interact, let's go right ahead into the topic. So, credit cards are very, very fun, but I guess a lot of people also are afraid of credit cards because we've all heard parang horror stories about credit cards, right? May mga nababaon sa utang or sometimes parang hindi na kinakaya yung mga bills and all that, right? So there are a lot of those things. So I wanted to take this opportunity in the stream to break credit cards down into sort of like a basic. So we're gonna talk about an 8-point basic checklist, right? Which I feel like if you answer majority yes, or if you sort of can relate to the 8 points, or at least the majority of them, then you're probably ready to really go into maximization of your credit cards. Right? So we're gonna do that para meron tayong good grounding. So if you do not know of some of these things, it's okay. There are ways to learn about it online. Obviously, you can also watch my other videos, but there's a lot of very relevant information online that can help you get to know your credit cards better. And they're actually not that hard to understand once you get the gist of it. So, yun yung objective natin today. The other one is then, once tapos na tayo dun, once you have made an assessment, we're gonna go into maximization. Ang hirap na sabihin nun. So, strategies which will help you get your cards to work for you really, really hard and to reach your individual goals and objectives, right? And I know from here, madami kasing cards na paiba-iba in the market. So obviously, we cannot talk about all of them, but I'm gonna give you my tips and tricks on how do I select my credit cards and how I actually make them work for me, right? So, very big accomplishment is when we actually decided, I think mga ilang years ba yun, mga 5, 6 years ago maybe, to focus our credit cards on earning travel miles. We've actually been all in. So lahat ng spending namin para nakaput in siya to travel miles, right? And so we've actually reaped a lot of rewards from it. So we were able to claim multiple trips na international just because of those airline miles. And I want to share whatever I've learned in those years with all of you so that you can also do that yourself for whatever goals that you want, right? So, ganyan. So, yun yung second part. And then, obviously, we will also talk about the watch outs. And if you're currently in trouble with credit cards, it's not the end of the world. There are ways to get out of trouble as well. So, yun yung ating framework for tonight. So hopefully that's good. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. Again, this is not a graded session. I don't even know who's on the other side of the screen. So if you have questions, just pop those questions in. We'll make this as informal as possible. Okay, good. I hope you are comfortable because we are going to the meat of the topic. Okay. So, just before we start with the hardcore, difficult kind of topics, we're gonna talk about basics first, right? So, una, how do they work? So, credit cards, basically, you swipe them at the time of purchase. You buy now, you technically pay later. Right? So, you pay typically about 20 to 25 days later, depende kung kailan mo sinwipe yung purchase. I think, simple as that. You get a bill every month saying, ito yung lahat ng sinwipe mo. These are the things that you have to pay during a said due date. Right? Very easy. Meaning, credit cards is a form of debt. Right? Technically, nangungutang tayo sa issuing bank because we are spending money, well, literally money that we did not shell out at the time of purchase. Right? So, yun lang yung isipin nyo. Credit cards are basically debt, short-term debt. Right? What happens if they are overdue? So, the unpaid balance becomes debt na medyo longer term. Then, it accumulates interest and then your credit score also goes down typically. And credit cards have a very high correlation with your credit score. So, if you see people who have trouble dealing with credit card debt, they also almost always will get denied maybe bigger loans like personal loans or housing loans. That's how it works. And if you don't know yet, banks actually do talk to each other. So there's a union of credit card operators in the Philippines, and it is allowed by law that they can share a certain amount of information of your transactions in your credit card. So hindi kayo magugulat minsan na may credit card ka from one bank, but nangungutang ka in another bank, yet this other bank says, hindi kami pwedeng mag-loan sa'yo because you have another credit history with another bank. So that actually happens, right? Then, I get this question a lot. What's the difference between a credit or a debit card? So, you don't have to be an accountant to know this. So, credit card basically is debt. You're spending money you don't have, so you're paying later. But if you're using your debit card, it's almost always linked to your checking or your savings account. So it's typically almost your ATM also, right? So ito, you're really paying up at the time of purchase and you are spending your own money. Wala kang hinihiraman. Pagka-swipe, tanggal agad yan sa balance mo. Right? So that's basically the major differences between credit and debit cards. Now, if you ask me which one is better, obviously ang answer is it depends. But really, if you're thinking about earning points and earning miles and everything, you don't really earn a lot in debit cards. There may be seasonal promos, but the debit cards typically don't give any reward. So yun yung pinaka-difference. Hence, I don't like them. So I'm actually using credit cards for a vast majority of my expenses, especially kung pwede lang naman. So, and we're gonna talk about that later on how do you do that for yourself. Now, this picture, I did not draw it. I do not have the skills. I would actually want to refer you to a website called Napkin Finance. So you'll see the link there, which gives you all of these like napkin one-page kind of summaries on key financial topics on personal finance. They're actually very, very cool. So go check them out. Right? So, I have a first question. So, Boyang has a question. Then may point pa ba ang prepaid cards? Right? So, prepaid cards, for people who don't know what they are, these are actually parang debit cards that you can load money into. I think the only good thing is if you don't have a bank account, right? So, typically kasi yung debit cards are tied to your bank account. If you don't have a bank account, then maybe a prepaid card can work. So technically, you buy a card. BPI has this and maybe other banks also. Loloadan mo siya. So let's say you put 1,000 pesos. Yun na yung pera na naka-load na yun sa prepaid card na yun. Then you can go to a mall or anywhere that accepts that card. And then you just swipe. And then yun na yun. Hanggang 1,000 lang. So maybe if you are banked, doesn't really meet a purpose, but if you are unbanked, it somehow helps because then you have sort of like a debit card even if you don't really have a bank account. So yun lang yung use case na yun that I can think of. If you have a bank account with a debit card, you probably won't need it. Okay? Yes, best friend daw siya ni Katrina. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about strong fundamentals because I don't want to go into maximize because when we go into maximization, we're also we also need to highlight and underscore that credit cards are actually a slippery slope, right? Because you're spending money you don't have. So if you feel happy na parang pwede lang mag-swipe, swipe, swipe, even if hindi mo pa siya nababayaran, things can go pretty bad pretty quickly. So you have to understand these fundamentals. So what I want you to understand and I want you to know is you have to be very aware of a certain few fundamental items so that you are ready and a-okay to maximize your credit card. Okay. So as of this point, maybe in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so, I'm gonna run through an 8-point checklist. Right? So what I actually want you to do, so para lang may exercise tayo. What we will do is we're gonna go through a series of checklist items. So what I want you to do is to take a piece of paper or your phone or whatever you can take notes from, and I want you to count how many of the 8 checklist items you got and you can say yes to. So these are I statements. So I know, I do this, blah, blah, blah. And so if you say yes to those I statements, you count that. And at the end, I will ask you to tally and tell me like how many you got yeses to, right? So out of the 8. Okay, so just do that for yourself. You don't have to tell me which ones you got, or I want you to make an honest assessment because this will help you assess if you're actually ready to get into serious credit card business, which we're gonna talk in the second half of the stream. Okay? So, ito siya. And so, let's go to checklist item number 1, right? This is probably very easy, but you may be surprised. A lot of people actually have difficulty in this, right? So, the checklist item number 1 is, I know when my due date is, and I know the implications of paying late. Right? So, sometimes you actually don't even know your due date or you don't know the implications of paying late. So, if you're saying yes to the statement, just tick 1 in whatever form you're taking notes in so that you know what to do. Right? So, let's talk about a few concepts here. Right? This is a Citibank example I took from their statement of account. Right? Here, what you need to know is your exact due date. So, TIF, kailangan mong alam ang exact date, right? Why is it very important to know the exact date? Because when you don't know that, then you run the risk of actually paying a few days late. Some banks actually offer a grace period, typically mga 2 to 3 days. So, meaning, let's say you're due on, say, every 10th of the month, even if pumasok yung payment mo maybe on the 11th or the 12th, some banks actually accept that as still on-time payment. But I wouldn't risk it. I would just use that as emergency cases. And you're never sure, right? It's at their discretion na kung papayagan nila na on-time pa yun. If you don't meet the due date, then it's very difficult because you will actually get fees for it, right? So, the key takeaways in this slide are 2 things, right? For new purchases, you don't earn any interest. So, if you just bought that in the same month, nagka-statement, mag-due, walang interest yun. That's technically free money, which is the awesome part of credit cards. Because basically, you're using their money for like 20 plus days without paying anything. Yun siya. So, that's the perfect scenario, right? However, if, and this is where people typically slide, if you pay partial, meaning hindi mo binayaran, so in this case, 20,000 pesos yung binili mo on that month. First month, no interest, right? But if you do not pay, you're actually getting an interest, which is right now capped at 2% kasi nag-pass ang Bangko Sentral ng regulation that they're capped to 2% per month. This used to be at the 3 to 4% per month range. But with COVID, BSP actually asked all credit cards to actually lower their interest charges, which is a good thing, but 2% per month is still quite high, right? So then, what happens is, if you pay minimum, yung balance lang yung pinagkaka-interesan. So here, what you would see is 20,000, you reduce by 500, so you have 19,500. You multiply the 2%, you will get 390 pesos. Yun yung interest charge, basically. Now, if you don't if you don't pay the minimum is typically 1% of the total bill plus your installment purchases, right? So for the sake of simplicity, let's say walang installment purchases in this case, right? So 1% ang babayaran nito. So this 1% is 200, so it's okay. Sometimes they have 1% or 500 pesos, whichever is higher. So in this case, 500 pesos yung sinusundan. Now, if you don't pay anything, you actually pay both the interest and a late penalty fee. The late penalty fee is somewhere in the range of 1,500 to 3,000 pesos per month every time hindi kayo nagbayad ng anything. Basta below minimum. They will consider that as a late payment, so you have that fee to worry about as well. So, if you carry a balance, meaning kung hindi mo talaga siya binayaran, right, you'll see here that if you're just paying the minimum amounts, you're gonna compound that interest because all of that will carry forward to the next month and so on until it balloons, right? So, parang ganun yung nangyayari. In this case, hindi sobrang visible yung increase in the amount because wala na siyang new purchases. But in real life, sometimes you will use your credit card again, right? So pag ginamit mo yung credit card mo ulit, magko-compound, na naman siya na magko-compound. And this is where a lot of people get trapped into the debt trap of credit cards. So just remember that, know your exact date. And if you don't know your exact date yet, it's very easy. Open your statement of account. It's almost always on the page where the summary of your total due is. It's almost always beside the total due amount, so you cannot miss it. And typically, your statement date is almost the same time every month, except na lang kung may mga shorter months like February or longer months like the months with 31 days. So, nagbabago-bago lang siya by a couple of days every month. Okay? So, if you said yes to that, tick 1. You can actually do sort of a mini cheat, and if you don't know, buksan yung statement mo, then alalahanin mo, then you can take that first checklist item off. Okay, so let's go to checklist item number 2. Number 2 is I have paid my credit card bill in full for the last 3 months. Why did I put this here? Because typically, and you really have to remember this, because typically, banks would really allow you to borrow even if you haven't paid in full. So even if you paid minimum amount, what you just need to do is bayaran mo lang yung 1%, which is super small, right? Sa 100,000, 1,000 pesos lang yun. But all you need to do is just pay that and then buhay yung card. Tuloy-tuloy siya, right? That's what actually banks want you to do because they want to earn off the interest that you will pay them eventually. So, if you have paid your card bill in full for the last 3 months, pat yourself on the back because you're actually doing a lot better than the general population. And if you've been doing this, it's a good indication that you have your budget in line and makikita mo na yung spending mo pala is within your means naman talaga. Now remember, very, very important, right? In credit cards, never carry a balance. If you are carrying a balance now, stay all the way until the end of the stream because I'm gonna teach you like tricks on how to get out of that balance. Credit card balances are one of the worst things, most evil things that you can do to your personal finances because they are filled with fees, and I will explain why later on. So remember this picture of the sad guy. Don't carry a balance. Okay. Si China, hihirapan magbukas ng statement. Birthday mo lang normally ang password nun. So baka maalala mo ko yung birthday mo. Okay, so we are done with 2 checklist items. We move to checklist item number 3. Ito naman is, I have set up how to pay my credit card bill efficiently. Okay, remember the word efficiently, right? So, sometimes, especially for those with multiple cards, you run into a problem of hindi ko alam kung paano bayaran to kasi hindi siya same bank, right? So if you have set up a payment methodology for your credit cards efficiently, then good job. If you haven't, try to look into these examples. Okay, so I placed 4 scenarios here. Number 1, kung direct siya via the same bank, yun yung pinakamadali. right? Meaning if you're paying from your bank account in the same bank to the same bank's credit card, so let's say BPI bank account to BPI credit card, super easy. You can do that 100% of the time because they're one bank, right? They will also make the user experience very simple. So that's something you will just need to do online or via the mobile app. That definitely you know. Where it gets a bit tricky is if yung credit card mo is not the same as your bank account. Parang ang hirap naman na meron kang bank account every time may credit card ka with them, right? So in a lot of cases, you also will have cases where banks require a big minimum amount to open an account with them. Citibank is one of those examples. I think Citibank, you need a minimum of 100K to open a deposit account with them. So medyo malaki yung minimum amount. So what you can actually do is you can pay still from your main account if they have a bills payment facility for your credit card. So like for example, CBPI has a bills payment facility to Citibank. So you can pay there. Technically, you can pay via bills pay. You set up your account one time, you enroll that account, and then yun na siya, tuloy-tuloy ka na. So, very easy. However, BPI or like your bank probably will not have partnerships with all other banks kasi hindi naman sila lahat in coordination. So what you sometimes can use is a third-party intermediary or digital wallets in this case. So what I use for banks that are not partnered with my main bank is I use GCash, for example, or coins.ph as a third-party step. It's not super efficient, but it's still much better than lining up at a bayad center or the branch, right? So what you would do is ita-transfer mo yung money mo from your main bank account to a GCash account, and then you pay bills from GCash. Just do note that these two, yung second and third, typically have processing times that average between 3 to 5 banking days. So, if you're paying for a due date, pay 3 to 5 days in advance para sure na mag-reflect na siya dun sa credit card company mo. And you don't run the risk of being late. Again, if you pay, for example, on the day, and since may dinadaanan ka ng mga intermediaries at late siya nag-reflect, it is up to the receiving credit card company if tatanggapin niya as on-time payment yun. Sometimes it does not fall into their grace period and you cannot really argue with them because the point of payment is at the point in time na nag-reflect yung payment sa credit card mo. So if you're using these third-party intermediaries, do give yourself buffer time. Typically, I would suggest 5 days para super sure. Okay? Then you have the other traditional ways of paying, which are ATMs. So you can actually do ATM, you can do bills pay on the machine. Over the counter is the old school yet fail-safe way of doing it. And then you also have check deposits if you want to deposit checks for payment. So pwede din yun. Okay. So Ate Shell has a question. So, is there a facilitation fee when you pay via bills, payment facility, or GCash? Yes. In a lot or like majority of the cases, may babayaran ka na fee. Typically, it's about 10 to 15 pesos per payment. Not that steep, and if you think about it, parang yun na rin yung pamasahe mo papunta sa branch if you really don't have another way. So, I would say, still okay, and typically, they don't have... they don't charge as a percentage. It's a flat fee naman. So yes, there are. There are also some bills payments though that are free. So you just read the GCash prompt when you pay para alam mo if there's a fee or if there's a promo. Okay. So we go to number 4. Hopefully, so tatlo na yon. So I'm not sure how many you got already. So we go to number 4. Number 4 is I have a good understanding of my spending habits. Right? And when I say spending habits, I'm really talking about types of spend. So, ano ba yung mga pinagkakagastusan nyo? Now, if you have a budget, and if you track your budget, you will almost always tick this checklist item. If you don't have a budget, mahihirapan ka with this question, which then prompts you to create a budget. So, if you don't have a budget right now, then you may want to consider creating a budget so that you have that in place. Right? Typical types of spend will be your bills, groceries, medicines, if you buy any, gas, shopping, travel, and anything else you don't spend on a credit card, right? So, typically, why I bucketed them into this, because ito yung mga super common types of spend that credit card companies look into. So those are some of the things that they want to incentivize with rewards as well. So very important for you to know yung types of spend and also the amount that you spend in each. So I would say, for example, if you are maybe a single person living alone, you probably don't have a lot of groceries, right? Maybe you buy for yourself. But maybe marami kang food deliveries, di ba, Sham? So, parang pwedeng ganun, right? So, pwede kang maraming food deliveries or pwede kang hindi ganun kadami yung gastos mo on medicine if you're younger maybe, but if you are a bit maybe older or if you have maintenance meds, then you have a lot more of those potentially na mga gasto. So it's really different per person and it's very critical that you know the majority of your spend kasi kung alam mo yun, it will come in handy later in choosing the right card for you. So every time I get asked the question, what is the best card? Sobrang hirap po nun guys sagutin kasi hindi ko alam kung ano yung ginagastos niyo, right? And how much you're spending. So you have to do this whole sort of exercise for yourself. But I hope you being here indicates that you actually are interested in sort of hacking your credit cards para dumami yung rewards niyo. Okay. So that's number 4. So we go to number 5. So far, so good. I think hindi naman tayo ganoon kabilis. If we are going fast, let me know in the chat. Okay. So checklist item number 5. Ito is more of a pledge. Right? So here, please pledge that I promise not to use my card for cash advance. And when I say cash advance, this is when you go to the ATM and instead na yung ATM mo yung nilalagay mo, yung credit card mo yung isasaksak mo because that can actually work. You enter your PIN and withdraw money from it. And I would say really, really just use that facility if you're in dire need of cash, meaning you really need it, you don't have any other source. Or if I recall one time we were in a foreign country, wala kaming cash, wala ding gumaganang ATM na that takes BPI ATM, so we had to resort to doing a cash advance from a credit card. So maybe you get the point. Maybe just use it in those dire cases. And why do I say that? Because in a lot of cases, it's a trap. Once you see na may perang lumalabas out of thin air, that money that you do not own, basically, it's one of those death traps that lead you to think that, pwede pala akong kumuha ng pera sa credit card and lalabas lang siya. And yes, there are interest rates there and fees that you can probably pay, but I would really, really suggest don't use that facility unless you're really, really desperate and you know how to pay it back. So, yun yung very important piece for that checklist. Also, cash advance transactions are almost always not rewarded din naman. So, if nag-withdraw ka ng pera, so, okay, nakuha ka ng cash, tapos wala ka ng rewards points na nakukuha doon in most cases. So, double whammy. Bayad ka ng interest, wala ka pa nakuha miles or rewards points. So, double lose. Don't do it. Right? So, very good. One tip, do not open your PIN envelope. And I actually do this, Chai. So, very, very good tip. So, di ba typically, when they send the mailer of the credit card to you, may parang small packet na may hidden, I don't even know what to call it. Yung parang may black and white na PIN envelope where you have the cash advance PIN inside. Typically, it's within the whole packet of the credit card that you receive. I actually don't open those para iwas tukso. So, don't do it. It's not the best source of cash. Okay. So, 5 na yon, 3 more to go. So, number 6 would be, I know how to spot scams or spam emails or phishing attempts. And this is very important, especially these days. I think dumami siya lalo nung pandemic because everyone was like just doing online purchases all of a sudden, right? So there's a spike in online retail transactions. So I'd like to share few tips lang. So I think some of them are pretty basic but doesn't hurt to remind people. So do not share your card expiry, your CVV, or the 3 digits at the back of the card, and your one-time PIN. They are meant to be for you only. They're meant to sort of guarantee that you are the one using your card. So don't share it. And obviously, don't share your password. The most common ones, I'm pretty sure you guys will not do this if you were not tricked. The problem is there are some cases where somebody calls you and creates an emergency. Sasabihin nila na, meron kang something, kailangan mong ibigay sa akin yung expiry ng card mo or yung CVV mo kasi kung hindi, magbabayad ka na ng ganitong penalty. Typically, if you feel like the phone banker or whoever is calling you is asking you for so many details and may sense of urgency, one good tip that I will give you is if you feel unsure and if you feel stressed and you feel na nirarush ka into giving that information out, drop the call and call your bank. So, much better na ikaw yung tumawag sa hotline ng bank kasi sure ka na yung number sa likod ng card mo yung tinawagan mo and confirm with them if what that caller told you is correct. Right? So, in a lot of cases, you will be able to do away with those like scams or spam calls that will get your information. Because like literally guys, once they have this information, they can almost just use your card to pay online. So pag may mga ganun, try to get out from that conversation. Also, don't click on links on suspicious emails. When I say suspicious email, sometimes gumagaling na sila even sa mga scammers. So one of the very easy telltale signs para hindi kayo maloko would be to check the email address of the one who sent and i-check nyo yung website ng bank nyo. If yung URL ends with the same website, 95% of the time, it's gonna be correct, meaning sila talaga yon. But if yung parang may mga weird, may mga dagdag-dagdag na mga kung ano-anong mga ending ng URL in their email, then chances are they're using a different server and there's somebody else. So just delete or put to spam. So if you say yes to this, very, very good because that's very important because it's also safeguarding your personal information. Okay? So we are at number 7. So sa number 7 naman is I understand how installment plans work. So, correct. Sorry. So if I go back, Shams have a very good input. And check nyo rin yung grammar of the email and yung mga wrong spellings, especially sa body ng email. Typically, these scammers don't spend so much time actually proofreading their emails. So, and corporate emails tend to be a lot better constructed. So, thank you, Shams, for that. Okay. Number 7 is I understand how installment plans work. Again, quite simple, but I want you to understand 3 very common things that you will see, especially na palapit na tayo ng Pasko. So, dadami na naman sila. So, number 1, yung pinaka-favorite nating lahat is yung 0% installment plans. They have actually become more common. They used to be like a perk that you will get. Now, you sort of expect that they have a 0% installment plan. Typically, it will be in the range of 3 to 6 months. You don't pay any interest. We're gonna talk about that later on. So, but here, it's really 0%. So it's good. It's basically just purchase divided by number of months, right? It can help with cash flow. The only pitfall here is if you do this many times, so papatong-patong silang lahat. So you have to be wary of the amount that you're still paying because even if naka-divide yun, ina-add pa rin naman yun eventually. So you need to understand that. Now, a cousin of the 0% interest plan is the buy now, pay later plan. Ito, very, very prevalent during Pasko kasi what they want you to do is you buy the thing now for Christmas because you deserve it. It's happy season, you should buy. And then you pay starting next year. You pay starting January. Chances are, this is actually a good deal because it's almost always 0%. So don't get me wrong, they're actually good deals because you don't pay interest on them. The only pitfall is that if you pay later, sometimes nakalimutan mo na yung pay later. It actually happened to me one time. Pinagalitan ko pa yung card company na sabi ko parang bogus charge to. Apparently, chinarge ko pala siya noong October na charge lang siya sa akin sa statement ng January. Nakalimutan ko na siya. So, meaning, kasi nakalimutan ko na siya, meaning I did not really maybe budget for it properly. So, just take note of that. I'm not saying don't use it. Just take note that that can be a pitfall. Now, Another like third cousin, medyo malayo, this installment plan are those na mga conversions. So typically these banks will offer you na okay, if at the point in time hindi mo siya na installment, so meaning straight purchase siya, binayaran mo siya ng buo, pero maybe nahirapan ka magbayad, or if you just want to stretch your money, they also offer convert to installment schemes or features. So they will have their own names for it. Sa Citibank, it's pay light after purchase, pero typically it's a convert to installment scheme. The watch out for convert to installment scheme is that these ones are um, they almost always come with interest fees. So just understand the interest fees. They're not like your 0% installment. They are good tools also if you need to stretch your money, but they have interest rates. So just understand that those are the most common types of installment plans that you have with almost all credit cards. I think every bank has a version of these three. So just make sure you understand that. And if you understand that, then we move on to checklist item number 8, which is, dinoble ko to para sure kayo, I can manage to spend within my allotted budget even when I use credit. Because typically, iba yung budget na nakasulat, iba yung actuality ng spend. Right? But if you can really manage yourself na you spend within your allotted budget, and this includes fun budget, guys. It can be a splurge budget, that's fine, as long as you plan for it. And if you can manage within that, it's perfect. Just take note, this is one of the key takeaways that I hopefully will leave with you, is no amount of extra spend, meaning if you are just purchasing for the sake of earning rewards, pero hindi mo na talaga siya gagastusin in a normal day, no amount of that extra spend will be justified by the rewards that you will get, because essentially you're really overspending. But if you're within your budget, you're technically good because you're making your expenses actually work hard for you by earning rewards. So make sure you stick with that budget and you don't overshoot, so that you can have a better relationship with your credit card. Okay, so those are the 8 checklist items, right? And so now, if you want and if you can, I hope you got your notepad out, can you just type in the chat box how many did you actually get out of the 8? Right? So if you can tell me maybe 4, 5, maybe you got all 8, then perfect. But really the main intent, I'll wait for your answers to come, but really the main intent of that exercise is for you to go through basic concepts and for you to do a self-assessment if you're really ready to maximize your credit cards before we get into that. Okay? So hopefully some of you can share how many did you get from that exercise. So that we can just do a simple gauge of where the audience is right now. Don't worry, walang judgment. Okay, thank you, Raymond, for sending in your response. So 6 out of 8 is not bad. So, and if you got some of them, so, perfect. So Brenda, perfect, 8. Tiff has 6. And then I'll wait for the others to come as well. But if you get a 6 and above, you're actually doing pretty good. But what I'll ask you to do is to actually try to go back to those like 1 or 2 items. Ikaw na ang 7 out of 8. And really just understand why did you not get that to be a yes, and then just go back to it. So perfect. I think most of you are 6 to 8 range. So cool. I think very important that you are in that range before we talk about maximization strategies. Okay. Cool. So, for those na hindi pa nakasagot, just keep your answers coming. I'll flash them back. But hopefully that was helpful as a basic assessment of credit cards. So now, that ends our first section, right? And now we come to the fun part. The fun part is really trying to talk about how do we maximize our credit cards. So meaning ngayon, now that we know na kaya natin mag-self-control, kaya natin mag-budget, kaya natin i-track, we know how to pay for this, we know the fees, etc., etc. It's time now to talk about the fun stuff for credit cards. Right? So we're gonna talk about how to maximize the cards that you have. Okay? Cool. Before we talk about maximization, though, I want you to understand how can banks actually afford rewards? Ito, typically, it's not being talked about because you just get the reward and we're all happy, right? So, it's very important to understand where do banks get this money because you'll have a better understanding as to how the whole game works. Remember, hindi naman sila magbibigay ng rewards for like the out of the goodness of their hearts, right? Banks are businesses, so they have to earn somewhere somehow. And they spend a lot of marketing money, they spend a lot of like mga promos to get you to spend more, right? That's the business of credit cards. So really the banks earn from three main ways, right? So you have fees, interest, and interchange. I will not even talk about fees and interest because they're pretty straightforward, right? So fees, late payment, annual fees, processing fee, whatever, income, yun sa kanila. And then obviously the interest that you pay if you don't pay your amount in full every month, then you pay an interest. So meaning, if, let's talk about the first two first. If you pay in full every month and on time every time, you're technically not giving the bank any money. They don't earn any fees from you. You don't earn any interest. And if na-waive pa yung annual fee mo, wala talaga siyang kinita sa'yo. Like, at least from your pocket. Right? Which is awesome. For a credit card holder, that's the goal, right? The goal is to minimize the amount of money that goes out of you. However, then PPA, paano yun? Kung wala kaming binibigay sa bank, how can they afford all of these smiles and all of these mga palibreng Jollibee sometimes, right? There's a third element which is actually the bread and butter of how they earn their income, which is interchange, or also known as, more commonly as the merchant fee. So what happens is the merchant, or let's just take an example of a restaurant, right? Restaurants want to offer credit cards because their clients, us who ate at the restaurant, sort of expect that we're able to pay via credit card. Imagine if you go into a restaurant tapos sabihin nila na, ay ma'am, cash only kami. Parang ako, wala na, lagot-lagot na kasi hindi ako nagdadala ng cash. So I would probably not eat at that restaurant. I would probably transfer somewhere because I am very bad at bringing cash. Friends know this. So basically, a lot of restaurants will offer credit cards because they know that the clientele wants it. They also want you to spend more while you're there. So, ang hirap naman kung may budget ka lang kung magkano lang yung nasa wallet mo, right? So, they want you to spend more. So, a credit card helps them with that as well. Now, for them to get the benefit of credit cards, then they're also willing to take a portion of their profit and give it to the credit card company, aka merchant fee. So typically, they pay anywhere between, I forgot the exact range, but it's anywhere between 1 to 5% depending on the category of the spend. I think restaurants are on the high side, so they spend mga 5% na merchant fee. So what happens is, if you swipe 100 pesos, the merchant or the restaurant in our example actually only receives 95. 5 pesos of that goes into the interchange. Now, itong interchange na to is being shared by all of the parties involved. So, meaning, si Visa or si MasterCard, which is the main interchange, takes their cut. And then, kung let's say BPI yung credit card mo, then BPI also takes a cut. So, dun mo na nakikita na, there is money being made by these banks every time I spend. And that's why there's this obsession in marketing that you have to spend. Because imagine, the more you spend, the more merchant fee. And the more merchant fee, more income for them. And some of that, they pass on to us as reward. So that's somehow how the credit card economy works in a very, very simple explanation. I'm sure it's more complex on the back end, but you get the point. So, why is it important to understand these kinds of things? Because once you understand this, you're actually able to sort of think through kung paano mo ito maximize, right? Remember, out of these three, only 2 of these come from you. You don't pay an interchange fee. I mean, if you pay for a 100 peso meal, you pay for a 100 peso meal. Caveat, there are a few stores though na pinapatong nila yung credit card fee. I mean, you've seen that in maybe mga yung mga low-cost stores who are already giving you a lot of discounts, meaning yung mga items nila are very cheap. Sometimes they would say na, yeah, tatanggap kami ng credit card pero dagdag namin yung merchant fee sa'yo. So, pinapasa nila. But in a lot of cases, when you go to a restaurant, wala namang nilalagay na merchant fee on top, right? So, you pay for what you pay if you were paying for it in cash, and then they shoulder the merchant fee on their side. So, dalawa lang talaga yun ang gagaling sa'yo dyan. Okay. Very interesting because that concept, so hold on to that as I go through the next 8. So, earlier, we talked about 8 basic checklist items. Here, we're gonna talk about 8 of my best maximization tips, and I'm gonna share like concrete examples. And here, I hope you send in more questions because medyo mahirap siya i-explain. So, let me know if I'm doing a good job explaining. If I'm not, clarify. Okay lang naman. So, let's go into the 8 best maximization tips that I have. So, here, number 1, do not be afraid of the annual fee. This is what I typically see in mga platforms like mga Facebook groups or mga chat groups that they're all looking for this free annual fee for life credit cards. While that is actually good because literally wala kang babayaran na annual fee. So remember, going back to our 3-part earning economy, fees are one of them, right? And annual fees are actually one way for credit card companies to earn. So if you don't pay the annual fee, then yes, hindi ka technically nagbabayad ng portion of this economy, right? So you're actually reducing the amount of money that goes out of your wallet, which is good. Why do I say do not be afraid of the annual fee? There are 3 big reasons why. Number 1, in most cases, you can ask to waive the annual fee. And I have done this quite often. I have probably failed very, very few times. It's not guaranteed, but it can happen. And it does generally happen. And sometimes they will ask you to just spend a bit more. So they will say, sige po, i-waive po namin yung annual fee nyo, pero pwede po ba kayong mag-spend ng another 20,000 in the next 2 months? Right? They may sometimes ask that. And for me, it's this give and take in the economy. And I would just like, okay, I would just move some of the spending over to that card para lang malibre ko yung annual fee. Sometimes, before you even ask, they will just give it to you if you've been using the card actively. So, as a good rule of thumb, if you spend roughly mga 20,000 per month, so about 360,000 a year on your credit card, the chances of your annual fee being waived is actually quite high. So, don't be afraid if you see an annual fee. Don't also not negotiate, right? So every time makita kayo ng fee that is being charged to you, just try and negotiate with your credit card, right? So alam yan ni Kat, I am not pro for paying annual fees. So you try, and then if you don't get it, try again until you feel na hindi ka na talaga mananalo. So in a lot of cases, with most banks in the Philippines, I think you can get waived. So don't worry about it. And the reason why I bring this up is because of the second point. 0 annual fee for life cards generally are really bad cards. And I've done a comparison across all of them. They are generally entry-level cards that really do not give you any good rewards. So they're like, sige na, para lang meron ka ng card, kung natakot ka talaga sa annual fee, sige, tanggalin na namin yung annual fee basta kumuha ka lang ng card. And some of these credit card companies want to do that because para lang mapasok ka lang sa ecosystem, and then they can market to you, right, and get more out of you. So sometimes they do that because they know that it's important for a lot of people, but then they also give you a card that doesn't really give you anything. Like if we have time later on, I can show you one of examples of those credit cards. They're really, really bad conversion rates, and like it's not even worth it if you really want to maximize. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're starting out, if you want to learn about credit cards, then yes, go for it. But we're on the maximization section of this stream. So if you want to maximize, stay away from those 0 annual fee for life cards unless they are of a specific use, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. Okay? Check then if the annual fee is explicitly called out as non-waivable. So far, in the Philippines, I have only seen this once, and it's the Citibank na Prestige card, they really say annual membership fee of 12,000, so super mahal because it's super elite card. Non-waivable and billed on the first statement. So meaning hindi pa nagsisimula, wala na 12,000 na at hindi mo to pwedeng ipa-waive. Sinabihan na kita. Basically is what they're saying. So when you see this, I think yun, hindi mo talaga mapapa-wave yun kasi sinabihan ka na, right? So, just take note of those cases. But this is an extreme example. It's the Citibank Prestige. You need like 6 million pesos annual income to get that card anyway to begin with. So, it's very, very select card. But I don't know. I haven't looked at all cards. So, but if you see that term in their website, then maybe stay away if you don't want to pay the annual fee. I'm saying 12,000 may sound steep, but if the card comes with maybe a golf membership somewhere, and if you are a golfer, then maybe 12,000 golf membership is cheap, right? So, it all depends on who you are and who the user is. If you feel na nag-travel ka every week, and if you get executive lounge access every week, I mean, barring the COVID pandemic, then lounge access is easily 1,000 per trip or per entry. So, if you want that, then maybe 12,000 is not a bad deal at all, right? So, it still works for a few people, but I think for the most part, us commoners don't really need the perks of those elite cards. So just check that out. Sham, so I can smartly waive bank fees or our company savings, but I pay my annual fee kasi I don't know the colony times. Yes, so this is a perfect example of a banking expert to reapply the expertise to your personal life. So, one tip, if you don't want to wait sa phone, typically, for good banks, you can email them or you can use their chat functionality or their, ano ba itong tawag? Parang message functionality in their website. So, you can use that kung ayaw mo mag-antay. Kasi ako, wala din akong patience mag-antay. So, gamitin mo yon and then just wait for the chat to pop up. At least medyo passive ka lang and you don't hear the whole music na nakakairita. So, you can do that also. And tama to si bro, on zero annual fee cards, they don't give you high credit limit increases. I would even go further that they don't really give you high credit limit in the first place. Right? So zero annual fee cards typically are like entry-level cards. So it's good if you're starting, but if you want to maximize, these are not the cards for you. Okay? Good. That's number 8. Number 7. Ako tong, if you hear me in my other videos, ang lagi kong sagot on everything is, what is the goal? Right? And so, number 7 tip is, do really have a clear goal and consolidate towards one objective. This is very critical in credit card maximization, which I did not do in the earlier years, which is a big, ano tawag ito, parang regret that we had. Right? So, I'll tell you a story. Because if you actually don't have a clear goal, ang hirap because halo-halo yung gagawin mo. But if you are consolidating to one goal, you're actually able to consolidate your purchases into a specific objective, right? So what I'm gonna tell you is this. There are really just 3 types of cards, right? Kung ano man yung mga pangalan nilang lahat, hayaan nyo na yun. Mga branding lang yun. But literally, there are only 3 types of cards. In the Philippines, at least. There are a lot more in other countries na mas sophisticated yung offerings. But you have miles or hotel points. So these are the travel branded cards or travel tawag ito, travel specific kind of cards or the rewards lean to travel perks. Then you also have cashback, right? So cashback, very easy. You get a rebate for all your spending depending on the terms and conditions of your card. And then you have general rewards. Ito yung mga mag-earn ka ng mga points that you can claim whatever. You can claim a GC or you can claim, I don't know, movie tickets or something like that. Right? So literally, there are only 3 types of cards. So you can bucket them all into these 3. So what I want you to do is find one of these 3 that are more relevant to you, right? So for us, we made a decision na yung credit card rewards namin will consolidate into travel-related points because we're the type of couple na gusto mag-travel. So that's what we made as a decision. So meaning, having said that, I literally went out of all of my cashback cards. The reason for that is, or it can be the same for you, right? If hindi ka ma-travel, then maybe you say cashback is more important for you. Okay lang din naman. If you don't want cashback, if you want general rewards to give you more choice, then okay lang din naman. But you pick one, basically is that what I'm saying. The reason for that is, you only have so much to spend, right? Remember we said in the earlier segment, only use what is in your budget. Don't spend whatever, right? So if you have your budget, let's say 50K on per month. So meaning in a year, you only have 600,000 pesos na pwedeng ipasok sa credit card. Kung bubuwag-buwagin mo pa yon, ang makikita mo will be like, okay, a few miles, a few cashback, a few blah blah, na parang hindi siya magiging meaningful. And obviously, right, if you want to claim a free flight, like maybe the minimum you need to have will be, say, 5,000 miles siguro for a local one-way trip. So even earning 5,000 miles is quite difficult. So if you break your objectives too thinly, yung spending mo na be-break din. So my suggestion is you focus on one objective, right? So for us yun, miles, but it can be different for you, but just select one. In saying that, I'm not saying have one card. I'm saying have one goal. So meaning, pwede kang mag-earn ng miles. Kung yun yung objective, you can have multiple cards that all earn miles, and we're gonna talk about that in the next few slides. But for now, as you silently sit there, think about what is that for you or for your family or for you and your partner, and sort of talk it through para makapag-decide kayo. Once nakapag-decide na kayo, I suggest for you to stick with that and then strategize towards that objective. Right? I'm just seeing this, so tama to si bro. So pinapa-wave ko lagi, annual fee ko kasi sabi ko i-cancel ko yung card pag di nila. Pwede din naman yun. So actually, one of the effective tips, and I'm probably gonna get dinged for this, is sometimes, if they really don't want to waive your card, and if honestly, wala na kayong use for that card, you can always tell them, then okay, cut na lang natin yung card na to, I don't need it. So, in a lot of cases, they will try to save the relationship with you, and they will probably waive or give you some requirements to meet para ma-waive yung limit, yung annual fee. Right? So, you can also use that tactic. It works most of the time, not always, but at least it works. And we have a second emotion pa from Franklin. Okay. So, going back to this tip, pick one goal. Consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. It's the secret to success. Okay. Number 6, tied to number 7, is spend everything through your credit card as much as possible. We're talking maximization, right? So, really, really maximize. What do I mean by this? Typically, especially in the Philippines, since yung credit card adoption is now on the rise, and now as people move to digital commerce, right, and e-commerce and online platforms, whatnot, you now have actually a lot more of your expenses that you can charge to your credit card. Now, what I want you to do when you do your budget and when you assess yung spend types earlier question, try to assess, can this be charged to a credit card or not, right? And I have them in 3 tiers here. So I would say, do as much as you can. But if you are spending already 40 to 50% of your expenses in your credit card, you're good. If you're at about 60 to 70%, you're okay, good, very good. But if you're 70% or more, then you are excellent, right? Remember, we only earn when we pass through the spending through the credit card. If you don't, then wala. We don't get anything, right? So the objective is to spend everything through cards as much as you can. Try to get them through a credit card. And it's okay as long as you pay it in full, on time, every time. You don't pay any fees, remember? Wala ding interest. So as long as you just gagamitin mo lang siyang pass-through lang yung credit card, you're not paying anything, and you get the extra benefit of it being very, very easy to do, right? Itatap mo lang, or like in some cases, I don't know if meron sa Philippines, but in Singapore, you can actually maintain the credit card on your phone, so you don't even need the physical card, pwede mo nang itap na lang yung phone mo. So if that is there, perfect. If that is not yet there, I'm pretty sure it would come in soon. Right? So you can do that. And ito, a tip that I got from my friend. So one of my best friends actually told me, allergic ako sa debt eh. ayoko ng credit card. Kasi feeling ko pag may credit card, bakit ko gagawin yung credit card kung afford ko naman? Tama nga naman, right? Bakit ko kailangan mangutang kung may pera naman ako? So, let's just switch that and say, yes, okay yan, kasi may pera ka. Gagawin mo lang, swipe your card and then pay ahead or pay right after your purchase, right? And I think for some of you may know this, some of you may not know this. You can actually pay without waiting for your statement of account. So, what you can do, pwede mong gawin, let's say, okay, nag-charge ako 100,000 for example, binili akong ref or whatever, right? Charge ka 100,000, since napag-ipunan mo na yon, and that money, you really cannot invest it, you really can, that money will really just stay in your bank account until mag-due yung card mo. There's no sense in waiting for your statement. You can actually pay off your credit card right away. So, don't need to wait. You can actually do that. And I saw Sarah earlier actually say that. So, if you have like big purchases, you can actually do advance payments. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't hurt your credit score. It actually helps you even release some of your credit limit back. Kasi, pwede mo na gamitin ulit. Right? So, good. Some of you are actually doing it. I'm not sure, Chai, kung which part are you? Are you the allergic to debt or are you the one who pays ahead or right after purchase? But anyway, I think you guys get the point. And tama yan, dun sa friend na yun, who will remain to be anonymous, this friend bought a luxury watch. So imagine nyo na lang kung magkano yun. And magkano yung points na nawala dun sa transaction na yun. So, medyo emotional pa rin ako about it. This happened maybe over a year ago. But just thinking about the points that could have been earned from that one transaction. Right? So, make sure lang that you think about credit cards. Walang mawawala. Basta bayaran mo siya on time every time, may kikitain ka lang. And it's not really debt if you really pay for it right after because it's literally a canceling transaction. So, make sure that you use your credit card so that you earn points for those big transactions. So good job, Brenda. You're doing that. Pay ahead after each purchase. You can do this online in some of those mga payment methods that we talked about earlier. Ayan, nagsisilabasa na yung mga guilty sa mga allergic sa utang. So yes. So let us convert people to earning rewards credits. Ayan, perfect. Cool. So, let's use this as a time then to go to the next tip. Okay. Sabi natin, 'di ba? Move expenses to credit cards. One of the biggest ways and actually one of the easier ways to earn rewards and rebates will be to use welcome bonuses or big spend promotions. Typically, if you have relationship with your bank, after a year, this is what I noticed, hindi ako super sure if it's a rule, but after a year, they will actually offer you mga big spend promotions. Or, if you are new to the bank, meaning wala ka pang card with them before, they will give you a welcome bonus, right? And I'm sure you've seen this maybe in some shape or form in social media. So you can also leverage that, right? So here, for example, what in Citibank, and this is an ongoing promotion, and I'm gonna actually link the referral link, which will help the channel if you want to apply for a Citibank card. But if you're new to Citibank, they actually have an ongoing promotion where they will give you a welcome gift depending on the type of your card after you spend the spend requirement in the first 60 calendar days. So, mga roughly 2 months. Right? So, here, let's take Premier Miles, right? Wag na tayo sa Prestige kasi mahirap kunin na card yan. But if you get the Premier Miles, they will actually give you 30,000 miles bonus if you spend 40,000 pesos in the next 2 months after na-approve yung card mo. That's it. If you convert that, that's a very, very cheap set of miles. It's like 1 peso point something lang, 'di ba? Kasi technically you're getting almost like 1 mile for every peso spent. So really, really good deal. So I highly encourage that if you have cards, new to bank ka, tapos may kukuha ka ng card with them, you time that when there is a welcome bonus so that you can maximize these rewards. So, sometimes you give up to like, see, meron mga 5,000 e-gift. So, you can actually just earn 5,000 out of a 20,000 peso spend. That's a 25% rebate. So, really, really good. Right? And like 20,000, what is 20,000? Right? Pag binayaran mo pa lang yung mga bills mo for the next 2 months and groceries, parang yun na yun. So, it's almost always a no-brainer to take advantage of these welcome bonuses. So, top tip, if you are in the business of maximizing your credit cards, and if you feel like na-handle mo na yung current cards mo and if you want to expand, wait for these other banks to have welcome bonuses. Don't just jump in because somebody gave you an umbrella at the mall. You deserve more than an umbrella or more than a, I don't know, ano ba pinamimigay sa mall? Garrett's popcorn. I don't get it. So, if binigyan kayo ng Garrett's popcorn or umbrella sa mall, say no, wait for the promo. You deserve more. You deserve at least 5,000 e-gift from Citibank. Because anyway, it's literally the same process, right? Baka wala lang spend requirements yung umbrella, but you get the point. Okay? So, welcome bonuses, very, very good way to earn incremental for your cards, especially if you're in the land of churning your credit cards. Right? So, say no to umbrella is the key takeaway in this slide. Next is, sometimes if you grow a relationship with the bank, then they trust you a bit more. So, they will give you access. Chef Tony's, that's the one I was looking for. So, hindi pala Garrett's. Chef Tony's popcorn. Hindi ko alam what's with Chef Tony's, but yes. So, say no to Chef Tony's. You can buy that with your 5,000 e-gift card. Okay. So, here, pag may relationship ka na with the bank, they sometimes give you better perks, right? And better promos. So, you can actually get this one. This one happened maybe 2 months ago with BPI. So, with BPI, if you had a BPI MasterCard, what they will tell you is you will get up to 6,000 e-gift cards if you spend certain amounts. So, if you spend 50,000 during the promo period, you will get 1,000. Or if you spend 100, you get 3. If you spend 150, you get 6. So, you can see na parang paakyat din yung percentage earn rate. Right? So, you will earn 2, 3, or 4%. So, obviously, they want to incentivize you to spend more. So, if you have a major purchase, what you can do, for example, let's say, bibili ka naman pala ng ref. Or bakit ref ba lagi ang example natin? Kasi yun yung mahal. Or bibili ka ng, eto na. So, kung bibili ka ng bed, like nangyari sa nanay ko, right? If bibili ka ng bed, and if nakaplano naman talaga yun, and baka bibilihin mo pa yun dapat next month, pero dahil may promo this month, pero may pera ka naman talaga for that bed, pwede mo nang bilhin yon kasi papasok yon sa big accumulated spend amount mo, and you can probably hit these promotions, right? So the good thing about these is they come in and out every year. Typically, they will run 1 or 2 promotions every year. So make sure lang that you read your texts or your emails because they will send this to you. And if you have spending na swak, then you can probably do that. But don't just buy a new ref para lang umabot sa 150,000. Again, no amount of rebates will justify you buying a new ref kasi dalawa na yung ref niyo sa bahay niyo. So, anong gagawin mo dun? Pero, you get the point. Don't spend more than what you're supposed to or you plan to spend just because a bank gave you gift certificates, right? Not the point. Okay. So, nakita pala ako na few questions. So, Boyang said, hirapitin or hikayatin ng mga skeptics na pwedeng namang parang cash payment kung paggamit ng CC, padaanin na CC. Correct. So, in some cases, it's really a bit of education, I guess, or it's probably what maybe some other people told them before because may mga nahirapan mag-manage and all that. So, it's really a lot of different things, but direct them to this live stream para mahikayat sila to maximize their credit cards. Pwede ba bumili ng car via ng credit card ng pambayad? Hindi, sadly. Ayan, sinagot na pala ni Kat. Okay. Sadly, no. They do not want to pay for the merchant fee. Kasi isipin mo, kung 1 million yung car, kung 3% yun, mahal din yun. So, they don't want to pay that. Okay, good. Okay, let's move to the fourth tip. Okay, fourth tip is find the best cards for your spend behavior. And the operative word here is your spend behavior. So typically, when people ask me, ano ba yung magandang card? Mahirap siya sagutin kasi hindi ko alam kung paano kayo gumagastos. So, again, just make sure that you think through, ano ba yung pinagagastosan ko? Saan ba ako gumagastos? And try to create a strategy of that because that's gonna be your lifestyle. And we're not increasing your lifestyle. We're just shifting your lifestyle from cash to credit, basically. Yun lang yung ginagawa natin. Okay? So here are a few examples of, I think, what might be helpful. Obviously, it's not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the cards that will probably be helpful depending on your different lifestyle. So, for example, the BPI Amore Cashback card. This one gives you cashback on restaurants, 4%, 1% on supermarkets, and 0.3% on cashback on everything else. And you have a cap of 15,000 pesos per year. Not bad. The good thing though is, if kung lagi ka nanonood ng sine, you get 5% discounts on your movie tickets from Ayala Mall Cinemas. You get access to the Ayala Mall family lounges or yung mga paid CR. So, very good. You get complimentary parking tickets, etc., etc. So, may mga ganong perks. So, if you probably live in Makati and you frequent Ayala Malls or maybe anywhere else but there's an Ayala Mall right beside you, then maybe, and if you want cashback, then maybe this is a good card for you. For me, I don't really go to Ayala Malls and my primary objective is not cashback. So, I wouldn't take this card, right? So, I think you get what I mean. The best card for you may not be the best card for me. So, use that to run the exercise lang. But obviously, there are a lot more kinds of cards. So, let's go for other examples. Okay. Here, this card I like. The Union Bank Cebu Pacific probably does not have the best earn rate in terms of miles, meaning hindi dadami yung miles mo from here because literally you only earn one go reward for every 100 pesos spent in Cebu Pacific and you earn one go reward for every 200 spent. So 200 is very, very low, guys. So, very, very high for 1 mile. So not worth it for me. But it helps because this card actually gives you free airport lounge access sa domestic only, meaning wag mo sa NAIA 3 even if pupunta ka mapupuntahan mo yung mga lounges in the domestic terminals, not for domestic flights, sorry. So if you are going to NAIA, you can actually access the NAIA terminal lounge for free if you have this card. So you can do that. And this card also used to have preferred line or queue sa Cebu Pacific na check-in counters and you get actually 5 kilos in excess. I am not very sure if that is still within the current promotion. So just read through if you want to check this card out. But this card does give that before. May extra 5 kilos na baggage allowance for the card holder. Not bad. So even if the miles earning rate are not that good, you can use the card for different perks as well. Okay? And then I have the third tip. So here, balik lang tayo sa tip number 4. Here, spend behavior will be the one that determines the best card for you. So pag naintindihan mo na what you're spending on, what you just need to do is to find the card that naswak dun sa spend patterns mo. Right? And number 3 will give you more examples. Here, it's learning about multipliers and limits or the specific terms of different cards. So dito naman, it's linked to number 4. So I'm gonna give you more examples para ma-drive home yung point. Okay. Here, look at this card. This card is the Hsbc Visa Platinum card. So this one, medyo hindi siya full-on travel card, but they actually have a lot of travel-related benefits. Hindi siya branded as a travel card. But if you look, you actually earn 1 air mile for as low as 25 pesos spend. Kasi you spend 4 points. You earn 4 points on every 20 pesos on overseas purchases. So take note. So overseas purchases. So meaning if you are traveling, this card may be the card that you use because this card gives you more points, 4x, if you're spending abroad. If you're spending locally, this card is useless. The earn rate is very, very bad. But it's a champion if you are abroad because maganda yung earning rate niya. So if you have foreign trips, and if you have cards like the Citibank Premier Miles, which used to be my favorite card, na walang ka-multiplier, if you go abroad, it's the same earning rate, then you may switch to the Hsbc to maximize that card. Right? So just make sure you understand ano ba yung ini-incentivize niya. In this case, it incentivizes a specific type. So it's overseas spend. Okay? So alam kong madami to, but once you get into the credit card game, it's actually quite interesting. Okay? The next one is to understand co-branded cards. So my new recommendation. So if you've seen the other video on the travel cards, you'll see that I'm recommending the East-West Krisflyer Miles card. I know this has a steep requirement. So this is the World card, but there's also a Platinum version. So if you don't qualify for the World card, which I know has a high spend limit, and I think apparently you have to have some relationship, meaning may deposits or investments ka with East West Bank to get it. So if you cannot get the World, try for the Platinum. But this card is co-branded with the Krisflyer, so the airlines, the Singapore Airlines loyalty program. So if you're like me who wants to rack up Singapore Airlines points, the best way to earn that is to your East-West card. So here you see 3 Krisflyer miles for every 36 if you spend it on Singapore Airlines, or if you spend on hotel, online, etc., etc. You get 3x multiplier. So if your spending happens to be one of this, and if your goal is to earn Krisflyer miles, then you found a winner card, right? So that you can use that co-brand to your strategy. Kasi pag co-branded, typically they give preferential na mga perks for you. So also use that to your advantage. Some other co-brands will be Bench, Forever 21, ano pa bang mga sikat na cards? Union Bank as a Lazada, co-branded cards. So all of those will give you a bit of an extra rebate if you buy from those stores or those platforms as well. Okay? Then the other one is may mga multipliers din on spend types. So one of the better Citibank cards now will be your Citibank Cashback card. Here, you get up to 6% cashback on supermarket purchases. So actually quite good, but you have to read because you have to spend like a minimum amount on supermarket or non-Meralco bill kind of spending para ma-qualify mo yan. So every time, yung trick dito is every time you read the words up to, alam mo na meron yan na mga catch. So meaning if you don't meet the certain thresholds or requirements, then you will not be able to maximize the percentage rebate. So just make sure you read the terms and conditions, but if you're spending a lot on supermarket, so if you're a mom, for example, at ang grocery nyo nagsaspan ng mga 10 to 20k per month, then it may make sense to get a cashback. And if yung goal mo is a cashback goal, then it may make sense to get this card because it has a higher multiplier for supermarket purchases para ma-maximize mo siya. Okay? Another one would be if yung spend mo ay medyo kalat-kalat at medyo wala dun sa mga normal scenarios na mga ini-incentivize ng banks, you can actually go with this Union Bank Platinum Mastercard that gives unlimited cashback. However, it's a low percentage. Ang problema, 1% lang yung binibigay niya, which is actually, if you think about it, is low. But, wala siyang limit. Most other cards have an annual limit of 12,000 to 15,000 per year. Meaning, kahit 6% yun on supermarket, yung previous card, yung ibibigay niya sa'yo every month may cap lang. So, meaning until 15,000 ka lang per year. However, kay Union Bank Platinum Mastercard, kahit ano yung ipasok mo sa card na yan, it will earn 1% on anything. So, if you spend big, and be it groceries or something else, then you can probably earn more if you use the Union Bank Platinum card. So really depends on your spend type, but these are one of the remaining kinds of cards that actually give unlimited cashback potential. So it's one of those that you can probably look into if you're in the cashback is my main goal team. Okay? Good din to kasi it's a platinum card. You also get free lounge access to NAIA. So it's sort of like a two birds with one stone kind of card. So this one is actually quite good. Okay. Okay, we're down to the last two tips. So, number 2 is have more than one card. And sometimes they say na, oh, wag kang kumuha ng more than one card kasi baka mabaon ka sa utang. But if you scored high in our checklist, I'm pretty sure you have self-control and you know your budget. So, if you have that sense of discipline, have more than one card and just label the best use. Ito na. This is where it gets very, very interesting, and I'm going to share with you what I personally do. Right? So, let's take my example in this case. My goal is airline miles. Tapos, pinecify ko pa, Star Alliance. Kasi, that's how we typically travel. So, yung favorite airline namin is Singapore Airlines, and you would have a lot of connections with the Star Alliance na mga member airlines. So, clear na kami. We seldom fly Cathay Pacific, and the Delta, which is the other alliance naman, is parang sa US lang yun. So, parang hindi naman laging ginagamit. So, Star Alliance. But obviously, if you want the other airlines, then you change this goal, right? So, you create a goal for yourself. Now, what I would say is that you have 3 categories of your cards. So, gawa-gawa na itong pangalan to, but I would think about it as you pick your power card, meaning ito yung main card mo. This, like, if you were to consolidate spending, you consolidate spending on this one card. Meaning, after doing all your research among all your cards, this is the card that will give you the most bang for your buck towards your goal. Okay? Then, because no one card is perfect. Kasi kung merong ganun, edi sana doon na lang tayo lahat and then wag na lang tayong pumuha ng ibang cards. So the thing is, the market is very competitive, so they will also tweak their mga promotions and yung mga tawag ito, yung mga rewards nila into mga paiba-iba din para ma-entice nila certain segments of the market. So, what's good is, if you have multiple cards, you can pick the secondary card. So, it can be another travel card with good conversion. So, it can be Citibank Premier Miles. Even if nag-devalue na yun, it's still quite good. It can be Hsbc Platinum, like what I said earlier, for overseas spend, my 4 times multiplier. Or it can be one of the BDO cards, who are actually quite good in terms of redemption rate. I think it's the Visa Platinum, yung okay. Right? So you can check out my other video on travel cards for you to go through the options, like my top 5 picks. Right? And then, my third category, which is yung mga backup cards. These cards, you can probably leave some of them at home. They don't have to fill your wallet, but they're there because there are different cases where you will need them, or you can take advantage of seasonal promotions. So, dito nagpi-play yung mga okay lang na meron kang free for life na annual fee. Kasi, pag ganun, okay lang. Kasi, hindi naman siya yung main na card na nag-earn ng rebates for you. But, at least, kung may mga promotions at mga lahat-lahat, you're able to maximize that from that certain bank. So, case in point, for example, my BPI MasterCard is not my power or my secondary card. It's just a backup card. So, to illustrate this, parang ganito siya, right? So, you have your power card, you have your secondary card, it can be something else, or it can be any of these backup cards. Now, there's no intention to indicate na 5 lang yung cards sa pwedeng meron kayo. It can be less or more, but I think you get the idea, right? So, you can use this as sort of like a matrix on how you strategize your card strategy. Now, how I do this personally is, I would say, pick your power card. So, for me, because the goal is Chris Flyer Miles or Star Alliance Miles, then use the East West Bank Flyer because it has the best earning rate It has the highest points that you can earn for the minimum amount of spend. And then you have a backup card. For me, right now, it's a Citibank Premier Miles kasi okay pa rin naman siya. It's not the best, but it's also giving you some flexibility. So meaning, what does this mean? In most purchases, use the East West Bank credit card. Yun yung default card mo. But if there are ways na, for example, baka si Citibank may promotion na if you spend this much, may makukuha kang this much, then you can use your Citibank Premier Miles, right? Doesn't have to be 100% kay East West. So you can marry these two so that you can understand kung ano yung mga pwede. So for example, you can also use the Hsbc card kasi yun yung may 4x multiplier. So you can label that and say, okay, if overseas spend, we can shift to this card because it's slightly better. Then you can have backup cards like BPI Gold, HSBC, or BDO Shopmore, or kung ano man yung mga cards nyo. And you'll notice that these are from different banks so that you can take advantage of the promotions of those different banks. Kasi pa-iba-iba talaga sila and they will all compete for your spend. Which is the good thing because once they compete for your spend, then they will really try to attract you with really good promotion. So yun yung maganda if you have multiple cards. Now obviously, all of them will have annual fees. Some of them may be free. So just make sure that you sort of maintain them at a minimum para hindi kayo magbayad. Or to what they said earlier, if you don't really need it, then you may just as well cut it if you are forced to pay the annual fee. Okay? So yun yung second tip, second to the last tip, which is really more of designate specific uses for your cards. Meaning, meron kang isang parang power or main card, a secondary card is backup, and then all of the backup cards just to make sure that you have a card in that bank in case kailangan mo siya. Case in point. For example, there was a time when the Korean embassy actually gives multiple entry visas for people who had a BPI or a BDO gold card or higher. It was a tie-up between BPI and BDO with the Korean embassy. And it's weird kasi kahit naka-platinum ka sa ibang banks, since walang tie-up, they don't recognize it. Only BPI or BDO. So if you didn't have that, then you still can get multiple entry, but they said na kung meron ka nung both of those cards, you actually have parang guaranteed multiple entry visa. So sometimes yung mga ganong perks that are relevant for your specific scenario, but you can't take advantage because you don't have that card. So the backup cards are there for that reason lang. They're not there to really earn the most, but they're there so that you can maximize the perks that come with them. So yun. That can be any card. I know of friends who have close to 10 cards. So lahat ng banks meron sila. So it's also quite good as long as na ma-manage nyo siya. So also don't overdo it, but you learn it over time. So that's the fun part naman of credit cards. Okay? And then my last and top tip, which I know maybe not all of you will like, but really read promotion emails and bank websites. And sometimes this can be a task, but I really suggest you skimming through what these card companies send to you because that's really where you find diamonds. Sometimes, and a lot of cases, they will require you to register. So you're not auto-registered in most cases. So if you don't register, you let go of the promotion. So hindi mo na maximize yun. So, sayang din minsan, right? Those are probably free money that you could have earned if you just read through the email. So, just read through that maybe before you sleep. Yun yung ginagawa ko as light reading at the nighttime. And if you find something interesting, just read through the terms and conditions. Okay? So, a couple of ground rules if you find good promos. Okay, tatlo lang. Number one, if there is a good promo, it's okay to shift some spending from your power card to the backup card. So for example, for me, yung kanina pinakita ko sa inyo na, if you spend this much, you get vouchers. So what I did is I shifted some of my spend to BPI for that certain month to take advantage of that voucher because it justifies you maybe taking it away from your primary card and i-shift mo lang sa backup card mo for that specific purpose kasi may nakukuha kang something more and beyond the daily rewards that you get. Right? So, that's a good way to maximize. The other one is be aware of promotion timings. Typically kasi, some of the cards also try to push their sales or their spend volume every certain parts of the year. So sometimes they will run na, okay, for the next 3 months, all online spend will have 10x multiplier or these kinds of things. Citibank right now has that. I think kakatapos ng I think, but they did run that for online spend, may 10x multiplier on rewards. So maybe even if hindi siya yung parang pinaka-winner card mo on a normal day, but because may 10x multiplier and hello, almost all spending right now is online. So imagine mo yung makukuha mo dun sa 10x multiplier na yun if you didn't read through that email. So parang yun yung mga some of those things that you can use to maximize. And the sad part is there's really no one way to learn about it. You just really have to read. So it's a skill you build over time. So yun, sabi nga ni Kat, I love to read the fine print of these emails. Sayang eh. And then, lastly, new features may get bonuses. So you'll also take note na minsan may mga pinupush sila ng mga new products. So for example, si Citibank has this City Pay All na tawag ito, na parang facility where you can pay any bank account in the Philippines. They had a push and they will actually give you like 2,000 pesos gift certificate if you use the service for like a very minor amount. Basta minimum ata 20,000 transaction, they give you 2,000. So that's like a 10% rebate. So some of those cases, especially if they're pushing new features, they are willing to give mga rewards and mga rebates. So take advantage of those then because those are seasonal lang. Right? So read through them. It's not really as bad as it seems, but you will get the hang of it of looking for the diamonds in the rough once you notice na okay, ito na naman siya or paulit-ulit to na promo or ito medyo okay talaga to. You'll see it as I think as soon as you train yourself to read through those things. So a couple of I think quite famous or I think and also quite recent promotions. For example, Citibank has this yellow cab pizza treat where if you spend 3,000 pesos, and I think this until September 30, if you spend 3,000 single transactions, straight purchase, you get a free pizza. Eh kung nagbabayad ka naman na talaga ng something na yon, the difference would just be that you registered for that promo. If you did not register for that promo, no free pizza. So, mga ganun. And I mean, I know it's not life-changing, but it's free pizza. So, it's happiness. And sometimes, si BPI, sobrang dalas to. Typically, I think almost mga Christmas time, they will also give you rewards for using your BPI credit card with Jollibee. Tapos may mga tiering pa yan na kung if you spend 3,000 o may Chicken Joy meal ka, if you spend 5,000, meron kang Chicken Joy bucket meal or something like that. So, may mga ganong perks sometimes that if it's relevant for you, it might be okay to shift some of those spending to your backup cards if may promotion. Or, if these promotions really happen for your main power card, all the more magiging okay, right? Kasi na ma-maximize mo talaga yung card na yan with your spending. So, just think about it. We are spending a finite amount of money because we also don't want to overspend. What we're trying to do is to find the cards that will tailor fit to our spend types, and we maximize it by flowing all spend into these cards. Meaning, as much as you can, papasukin mo sila lahat sa cards, and the difference would be the composition of cards that you have in your wallet. So yun yung parang in summary, that's what I hope you will embark to do, and I hope to make more videos so that I can share things that I learned or recommendations kung may mga ganon. So, that was quite a lot. I know medyo heavy to take in. You can always go back to this video. I'm gonna upload it right after. But hopefully that helped you learn about maximization tips and how I actually personally do that. And medyo humbrag, I hit a milestone and actually reached mga 500,000 air miles just by doing this, guys. So, and 500,000 air miles is a lot. It takes you like 6 round-trip tickets from Manila to the US or Europe. So, really, really good deal if you know how to maximize it. It also takes time and takes discipline to learn. I did not earn them naman like in 1 year, right? It takes time to build, but you get the point. If you truly strategize and truly maximize, you can actually get to that level. And may mga iba pang mga super galing na mga people on the internet that their goal is to actually be millionaires na mga ganun, that they want to get like 1,000,000 miles from just credit card churning. And it's very possible if you really strategize around it, right? So, hindi na siya ganun kadali, right? Okay, so let's go to the last part, and then I'll wrap up quickly, and then if you have other questions pa, we can take them. But this is really more of watch outs on how to get out of trouble if you're already in trouble with credit cards, because I know a lot of people are. I'm not saying one of you is in trouble, but if ever you have a friend, you can also direct them to the video. It might just help. Right? So number 1, don't fall for all promotions. So sometimes there are really promotions that are really bad. So sorry Hsbc, but this one came in mga kailan ba to, last month. They said, okay, don't miss. You will get blah blah blah, but you will get like 100 pesos every 5,000 spent. Like that's super low. So I will not really try my best to shift spending over to your card just for you giving me 100 pesos every 5,000. So, sometimes may mga ganun lang. So, don't fall for all promos. Do a risk-reward assessment. Madali lang naman yun. So, if you get into the land of, okay, sayang din yung 100, sometimes kasi nakakalimutan mo na you're actually earning more than that if you stuck with your power card. So, you can do that assessment. Like this one is a 0.2% rebate. So, it's not a big deal. And masistress ka pa. So, don't fall for all promotions. The second one is, I want to ask you, this is a Security Bank Platinum MasterCard. Dito naman, they are claiming that it's actually, you get 1 point for every 20 pesos spent compared to the other banks na 30 pesos. Okay. Good or bad? Can people in the chat tell me, if you read this promo, right? This is an actual promo. If you go to the Security Bank website, you will see this. I took this screenshot earlier today. So, is this a good deal or not a good deal? Okay. And while you send in your answers, let me just drink water. Okay. No right or wrong. Well, may right or wrong answer, but I'm not gonna call you out for saying the wrong answer. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if confused kayo. So, but actually, the trick here is sometimes banks will actually tempt you with these kind of wordings, right? But if you look here and if you look deeper, you can actually get all of this information from the website. If you say you can earn 1 point for every 20 pesos, hindi naman mali yun. Tama yung statement na yun. But if you go to their website and if you actually claim miles, you can look at for 1,000 KrisFlyer miles, you have to redeem 16,667 points. E di pag kinonvert natin to into spending, you're actually spending 333 pesos for 1 KrisFlyer mile. This is highway robbery, right? You can get that for spending. Remember kanina, if you spend sa KrisFlyer Elite ng East West Bank, you get 3 every 36 pesos spent diretso. So 12 lang per KrisFlyer mile. This one, you need to spend 333 pesos effectively to get that 1 mile. Ang best na nila na conversion is AirAsia, which is still 133, which is still really, really bad. So, this is one good example of be careful of the front page kasi syempre yun yung marketing. But if you were to really think through how you're gonna earn and how you're gonna redeem from this card, you're gonna realize na marketing lang pala yun. So the tip here is if you see that na parang points, kasi may iba na hindi siya direct na pag na-earn mo na diretso siya mile, dadaan siya muna sa point, always make sure to look at the website para malaman nyo kung ano yung eventual conversion nun. If the website is not that telling, I suggest asking a friend who has a card in this bank para ma-check nyo. So, alam ko medyo matrabaho, but if you're thinking of making this your power card, kasi pwede, right? Pwede mo siyang maisip kasi parang sobrang okay yung marketing. If you made this your power card, you would have wasted money on the earn rate. So, very bad. Do not get the Security Bank. Do not get the Security Bank Platinum Mastercard. I am willing to go on record for that. Very, very bad conversions for air miles. But that's a tip. Okay. Then, last one, if you have a credit card balance, prioritize it, right? It's one of the most expensive debts normally kasi you've seen the fees, you've seen how it compounds, etc. If you are investing while having a balance in your credit card, stop investing, pay the credit card. It doesn't make any sense. So pay your bad debts first, especially expensive bad debts, before you do investing. So even if nag-feel good ka, nag-invest ka, pwede ka pang natatalo dahil hindi mo binayaran yung credit card bill mo. Bayaran mo. Okay? If hindi mo kayang bayaran lahat, pay off a big portion every month, more than the minimum due, and make sure that you eat into the balance every month kung hindi mo kaya. So pwede namang paunti-unti, but be aggressive as much as you can. So if you are in a bad shape kasi may balance ka with your credit card, what you can do is you can actually maybe forgo some stuff this month para put in mo yun to pay for the credit card para makalabas ka from that hole. Another tip is if you're in this scenario, don't add more purchases kasi gugulo lang yung computation ng interest and you're not helping yourself. So even if I'm an advocate of spend everything through credit cards, if you are in a balance right now, it just means that you did not really do a good job managing your finances. So we're not on the maximization phase. Balik tayo sa basic phase. Meaning, do not add more purchases. Take a deep, hard look into your budget and your spending. And then, pag na-reset mo na, and then once you learn it, then maybe resume, but with all the learnings that you already carry with you. Don't just keep going kasi sabi ni PPA, spend everything to your credit cards, right? Remember, dapat pumasa ka muna doon sa first part. Okay? And then lastly, if you're really in really bad shape, because the interest rates for credit cards are actually still very high, 24% per annum yun. So you can also consider, as long as naayos mo na yung personal finances mo, you can consider taking a personal loan if you still can, if you have that option, with a lower interest rate because that may just give you some interest savings as well. So even if yung personal loan charges a 10% per year or an 8% per year, it's still much better than your 24% per year sa credit card. So you can also take advantage of that. Tawag doon is loan or debt consolidation. So while typically ang sinasabi is wag kang mangutang para pambayad mo sa pang-utang, it sometimes makes sense to do that, but you have to be very disciplined na yung pangalawang utang, binabayaran mo talaga diligently, right? So that can actually work to your advantage. Okay? So those are just some reminders if you have a balance. And lastly, again, ulitin ko to, super important, no amount of rewards will make up for blowing your budget. So, hindi dahil may rewards, go lang ng go kasi may rebates na tayo nakukuha. Remember, the rebates will always be like up to 6% at max. You're still spending the 94% beyond your budget even if you get those rebates. So, there's really no good deal that can justify spending if you are already spending beyond what you have planned to do. Okay? That was my last slide. So, thank you for staying all the way. I hopefully you learned a thing or two, and I know quite a lot. But now let's really just go into Q&A. I think maybe for the next 10 minutes, if you have questions or if you have clarifications on any of the slides, pwede naman nating balikan yun. But if you have any of clarifications from the prior segments, feel free to just use the YouTube chat. So if you have maybe questions on specific cards or a specific experience na go through niyo before, feel free to type it in and I'll try my best to answer. Okay? So maybe as you think of your questions, right? One of the, I think, most revealing things that I've seen in my credit card journey is banks really are out there to get you to spend more. Yun talaga. Kasi yun yung main driver of their income, right? Interchange fees, which are percentages of spend. So meaning, ang growth factor is to grow the spend, right? So they're really out there for you to spend, and it's okay if you're actually aware of your budget and you just utilize the bank's want for you to spend kasi i-incentivize kanya to spend, right? If you just shift your spending to what they want you to spend on, right? So pag shift mo lang, meaning you're not spending more, you're just spending within your budget, but you're just being smart about how you use your spend and your credit cards, then you're actually on your way to be able to maximize your credit cards a bit more. Kasi yung mga seasonal promos na yun are sometimes one of the best offers from credit card companies din. So, if you learn that and if you understand that, it's very, very good as a skill if you can see those opportunities. And hopefully this stream help you learn a thing or two, at least go back to basics, try to understand what do we need to think about first before trying to maximize, and then also ways on how to maximize if you're already there in that stage. Okay, so may question dito. So here, the question is, ano yung favorite mo na encounter na credit card promotion or reward? Okay, good question. So, actually, I think the best one, if I'm not mistaken, would be, if you recall, merong parang Hsbc promotion where you spend certain amount and then you get round trip flights to Hong Kong on Cathay Pacific. I think it was a limited time offer. And it just turned out that we were on travel on the time of the promotion period. So it's not like we were spending money that we didn't plan to spend on. But if you're on travel, typically you spend a lot more than normal, right? So nataon lang yun. And then we were actually able to get free Hong Kong flights just from that. So may mga ganun minsan na mata-timing siya to your spending. Another tip pala, if you want to maximize yung mga welcome bonuses, especially if may mga wedding kayong gagastusan, or if you have a trip or a home renovation, yun mga perfect times for you to channel all of that spend kasi malaki yun ng mga bulto into your credit card so that you can maximize the rewards. Okay, any tips you could give for those who do not have a credit card but would like to have one? Usually, they are being declared if they are attempting to apply for one. Okay, good question. So here, for newbies, if you have no cards yet, ang pinakamadali typically would be, if you're already working and employed, right? Try to apply from the bank where your payroll is being credited to. So, yung payroll bank nyo. Why? Because they know how much you earn, basically. Like, kasi pumapasok yung amount. So, that would give them good confidence that you actually are earning a salary. And in a lot of cases, they will actually offer you a credit card. But if in the off chance that they don't, you can actually go to them and ask for a credit card. And I have seen that to be one of the more effective ways to get your first card. So, yun yung isa. The other tip, or maybe a second tip that I can give you is, if you really don't have a credit card yet, what you can do is you can apply for the free for life na mga annual fees, because those are basic cards. So, Citibank Simplicity, BPI Blue, BDO Shopmore, yung mga basic na mga cards na may mga low income requirements. The lowest, I think, is 180,000 per year, which comes to about mga 15,000 per month. Because these cards were designed to be mass market cards, meaning it's almost like pinamimigay na itong mga card na to kasi binibigay siya sa maraming mga tao. So the chances of you getting that card is actually much, much higher. Versus, pag nag-apply ka sa mga cards na may mga perks and may mga annual income requirements na matataas, even if you have that annual income, sometimes they will still decline if you don't have the history of the credit card. So it's good that you start with a basic card, build the history, and then the second card should be like much simpler to apply to, as long as hindi mo inabuso yung first mo na card. And the chances are, actually, if you did really well on your first card, these banks will just come calling and like, offering you credit cards left, right, and center. So, madali. Payroll bank, I think, is the easiest. If hindi pa rin nag-work yun, try the basic cards. You will know it when you go to the bank's website, kasi sila typically yung may mga pinakamababa na annual requirements of income, and sila yung almost always the ones that come with free for life na annual fee waiver. So try to check those out. Those would be my tips for newbies. Okay. And then, cool. I think there may be other questions. Just let me check. Okay. So, no other questions. So, hopefully that was a good stream. We're nearing top of 2 hours. So, thanks for joining all the way through. And again, I'd like to invite you to subscribe. So the subscribe button is where? Here, I think. So if you can click on that, would be really great. And also, I do finance coaching on the side. So if you need a finance coach for all things investments, credit cards, goal planning, whatever, hit me up on hello@thepesopro.com. I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for staying this Saturday evening. I hope all of you guys stay safe and stay healthy. And reminder for everyone who has not yet registered to vote, you have about 1 week left, so please do register and try to participate in the coming elections as well, right? Please stay safe and please take care. Thank you for joining me in our comeback stream, and please subscribe so that you have so that you can also see the other videos that we're gonna put up next time. Okay, thank you everyone, and good night. Have the good rest of your weekend.